Captain Do-hyun sat in his command chair aboard the exploration vessel Taeguk's Pride, watching the purple and blue gases of the nebula swirl past the viewport. His ship had been out here for 3 weeks, mapping this region of space for the Galactic Council. It was boring work, but somebody had to do it. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Do-hyun rubbed his tired eyes. It was late in the ship's night cycle, but he couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, though he couldn't explain what. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Hana said from the communications station. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and quick fingers that danced across her controls. "It's faint, but it sounds like a distress signal." Do-hyun sat up straight. "Clean it up. Let me hear it." Hana worked her console. And soon the bridge speakers crackled to life. At first, there was only static. Then words came through, broken and desperate. A man's voice, human, screaming. "They're everywhere. They're taking everyone. Please, someone help us. The Viral Dominion has—" The sound of weapons fire cut him off. More screams followed. Then a woman's voice, also human, crying. "Colony Kepler 447 requesting immediate assistance. They're loading people onto ships. Oh God, they have my daughter." More weapon sounds. Then silence. The bridge crew sat frozen. Do-hyun felt his heart pound in his chest. He had heard about the Viral Dominion. Everyone had. They were slavers who raided frontier colonies, taking people to sell across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had condemned them dozens of times, but words never stopped the Viral. They just kept raiding. "Hana, where did that signal come from?" Do-hyun asked, keeping his voice steady. "Kepler 447, sir. Mining colony about 4 hours away at maximum speed." Hana's voice shook slightly. "Population records show about 4,000 people there, mix of humans and Rillian refugees." Yoonji, the tactical officer, pulled up data on her screen. She was a former Special Forces soldier, all business and hard edges. "Captain, I'm reading 3 Viral warships in orbit around Kepler 447, plus multiple smaller raid craft on the surface. If that signal was genuine, the colony is being hit hard right now." "Have you sent the distress call to Galactic Council peacekeepers?" Do-hyun asked. "Yes, sir," Hana replied. "But the nearest peacekeeping force is 3 weeks away. They said they'll get there as soon as possible and asked us to monitor the situation." 3 weeks. Do-hyun knew what that meant. In 3 weeks, Kepler 447 would be empty. Everyone there would be gone, sold into slavery across the galaxy. The Galactic Council would arrive, write a report, condemn the Viral again, and nothing would change. Minho, the engineering chief, spoke up from his station. He was a big man with oil-stained hands and a brilliant mind. "Captain, we could reach them in 4 hours." "We're one exploration ship," Yoonji said quietly. "They have 3 warships. Our weapons are designed for asteroid clearing, not combat. This would be suicide." Do-hyun looked around his bridge. His crew. Good people. He had no right to ask them to die in a fight they couldn't win, but he kept hearing that woman's voice. "They have my daughter. Pull up everything we have on Viral ships," he ordered. Yoonji's fingers flew across her controls. Viral warships are old but powerful. Heavy armor, plasma cannons, and shield generators. Each one could take out 10 ships our size. Their raid craft are faster, lighter, designed for quick strikes and cargo hauling. What about weaknesses? Their reactor systems run hot. They need to vent excess heat regularly, or they overheat. And their tactics are straightforward. They rely on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. They don't expect resistance. Yoonji paused. "Sir, what are you thinking?" Do-hyun stood up. "I'm thinking that 4,000 people are about to disappear into slavery. I'm thinking that the Galactic Council won't help them in time. And I'm thinking that we're 4 hours away." "Captain," Yoonji started. "I know the odds," Do-hyun cut her off. "I know this is insane, but we're humans. We're from Earth. Our entire planet spent millions of years trying to kill our ancestors, and we survived. We learned to hunt things bigger and stronger than us. We learned to never give up, never leave our people behind. He looked at each of his crew members. But I won't order you to come with me. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to stay behind can take the shuttle. No judgment, no shame. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Minho laughed, a deep rumbling sound. Captain, where exactly would we go in a shuttle? We're in the middle of nowhere. Besides, I've always wanted to see if my mining charges would work on something other than rocks. Jiwan's voice came over the intercom from the medical bay. She was the ship's doctor, calm and steady. I'm prepping medical bay for casualties. Bring our people home, Captain. Hana smiled, tears in her eyes. Someone has to tell those Vral bastards that humans don't abandon their own. Might as well be us. Yunji stood up and saluted. Sir, if we're doing this, we better do it smart. I have some ideas. They're crazy, but so are we apparently. Do-hyun felt pride surge through him. This was his crew, his family, Deathworlders, every one of them. All right. Yunji, tell me your crazy ideas. Minho, see what you can do to make our mining equipment more deadly. Hana, prepare a message to transmit when we arrive. Let's show the Vral why they should have left humanity alone. The Taeguk's Pride changed course, engines burning at maximum power. 4 hours to Kepler 447. 4 hours to do the impossible. As the ship raced through space, Do-hyun thought about Earth, his home world. Everyone in the galaxy called it a death world, a place so dangerous that it should have killed humanity long ago. Storms that could destroy cities, predators with fangs and claws, diseases, earthquakes, volcanoes. Earth threw everything at humanity, and humanity survived. Not just survived, thrived. They learned to fight back. They learned to protect each other. They learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to be more dangerous than the things trying to kill you. The Vral Dominion was about to learn that lesson. Do-hyun watched the stars stream past. 4 hours. Then they would arrive at Kepler 447. One small ship against 3 warships. Impossible odds, but humans had never cared much about impossible. The Taeguk's Pride dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 447 system. What Do-hyun saw on the main screen made his blood run cold. 3 massive Vral warships hung in orbit around the colony world. Each one was 5 times the size of his ship, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Below them, smaller raid craft zipped back and forth between the planet's surface and the warship's cargo bays. Even from this distance, Do-hyun could see the tiny figures of people being herded into those ships. Give me numbers, he ordered quietly. Yunji's voice was tight. 3 capital ships as expected, 15 raid craft. Thermal scans show the warships are running hot. They've been here a while, probably several hours. Cargo bays on 2 ships are nearly full. They're almost done. Almost done. That meant thousands of people were already trapped in those ships, waiting to be taken to slave markets across the galaxy. Hana, open a channel, all frequencies, Do-hyun said. The communications officer nodded, her hands shaking slightly. Channel open, sir. Do-hyun took a deep breath. Attention, Vral vessels. This is Captain Do-hyun of the human exploration ship Taeguk's Pride. You are in violation of Galactic Council Mandate 7724. Release your captives immediately and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. For a moment, there was silence. Then laughter filled the bridge speakers. A harsh, clicking voice responded in broken but understandable galactic common. Little human ship, little human captain. You are 1. We are 3. Go away before we take you 2. Human slaves fetch good prices. More laughter. Then the channel cut off. They've locked weapons on us, Yunji reported. All 3 ships. I'm reading plasma cannons charging. Good, Do-hyun said. That means they're paying attention to us. Minho, status on your surprise? The engineer's voice came through the intercom, excitement clear despite the danger. Mining charges are loaded and ready, Captain. I've modified them with proximity sensors. They won't be as precise as real missiles, but at close range, they'll punch through armor like butter. Also rigged the gas vents to release the nebula compound we've been storing. It'll create a thermal cloud on sensors. Perfect. Yunji, remember those crazy ideas you mentioned? The tactical officer smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator about to strike. Yes, sir. It's time to show them how Deathworlders hunt. Do-Yun gripped his command chair. All crew, secure for combat maneuvers. This is going to be rough. He looked at his pilot. Kyung, take us into the planet's atmosphere. Maximum speed. Flight path Yunji programmed. The pilot's eyes went wide. Sir, that's a 90-degree dive at full burn. The hull stress will be— I know what it will be, Do-Yun interrupted. Do it anyway. The Taeguk's pride suddenly accelerated, diving toward the planet. The hull began to shake violently as they hit the upper atmosphere at speeds that should have torn the ship apart. Do-Yun heard metal groaning, felt the entire vessel shudder. On the sensors, he watched the Vral ships react. They were confused. The little human ship wasn't running away. It wasn't attacking. It was diving toward the planet like a meteor. What was it doing? Venting gas now, Minho announced. Behind the Taeguk's pride, a massive cloud of superheated nebula gas exploded from the ship's vents. It spread rapidly, creating a huge thermal bloom that covered their sensor signature. To the Vral ships, it would look like the human ship had exploded from the atmospheric stress. But the Taeguk's pride was very much intact. They were just hidden now, screaming through the atmosphere with fires trailing from their hull. Pull up! Pull up now! Yunji shouted. The pilot yanked the controls, and the ship curved upward in a tight arc that should have been impossible. The crew was thrown against their restraints. Do-Hyun tasted blood where he bit his tongue. But the ship held together, and suddenly they were behind the nearest Vral warship, so close that they were almost touching its hull. Fire everything, Do-Yun ordered. The mining charges launched at point-blank range. They weren't designed as weapons, but at this distance, they didn't need to be. The explosive charges, meant to break apart asteroids, slammed into the Vral warship's engine section and detonated. The explosion was massive. The Vral ship's rear section simply disintegrated, taking its reactor with it. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel as systems overloaded. Within seconds, the mighty warship was a drifting wreck. One down, Yunji said, her voice filled with fierce satisfaction. But the other two Vral ships were already turning, their weapons tracking toward the Taeguk's pride. Do-Yun saw plasma cannons lighting up, ready to fire. Use the planet's gravity well, he ordered. Slingshot maneuver. The pilot didn't hesitate. The Taeguk's pride dove again, this time using the planet's gravity to accelerate them even faster. They whipped around the planet's curve, putting the massive world between them and the Vral weapons. Yunji, take your team and get to the dropship, Do-Hyun ordered. We'll keep these two busy up here. You get to the surface and start extracting colonists. Sir, the dropship isn't rated for combat insertions. I know. Do it anyway, that's an order. Yunji nodded and ran from the bridge. Within minutes, Do-Hyun heard her voice over the intercom. Dropship away, heading to the surface. On the planet below, the Vral ground forces were still loading captives onto their raid craft. They had heard about the space battle above, but they weren't worried. Two warships still remained. The humans couldn't win. They had no idea what was coming. Yunji's dropship hit the atmosphere hard and fast. Inside, she and 5 other crew members checked their weapons. They weren't soldiers, not really, just explorers. But every human trained in basic combat. You had to when you came from a death world. The dropship landed with a crash in the middle of the colony. Vral raiders turned, surprised. They saw a small ship and 6 humans emerging. The Vral laughed. 6 against 50? This would be easy. They were wrong. Yunji moved first, her weapon firing in controlled bursts. The Vral wore armor. But human weapons were designed to penetrate. They had to be, because everything on Earth was dangerous. Two Vral fell before the others could react. The humans scattered, using the colony buildings for cover. They knew terrain, knew how to use every shadow and corner. The Vral were used to their victims running away, not fighting back. But humans didn't run. Not when there were people to save. One Vral warrior charged at Yunji, confident in his size and strength. He was twice her mass, covered in thick scales and armor. He expected her to be afraid. Instead, Yunji dropped low, swept his legs, and shot him 3 times in his less armored neck joint before he hit the ground. On Earth, humans hunted animals much bigger than themselves. They learned to find the weak spots, to be faster, smarter, more ruthless. The battle on the ground turned into chaos. The Vral had numbers and strength, but the humans had something else. They had millions of years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They had learned to fight impossible odds and win. Above the planet, Do-hyun watched the sensors. The 2 remaining Vral ships were coordinating, trying to trap the Taeguk's pride between them. They were communicating with each other, planning their attack. Minho's voice came through. "Captain, I can jam their communications. It'll only last maybe a minute before they adapt, but it'll make them confused." "Do it," Do-hyun ordered. The Vral ships suddenly lost contact with each other. For 60 seconds, they were alone, unsure where their partner was or what was happening. 60 seconds was all the Taeguk's pride needed. They struck fast, launching their remaining mining charges at one ship's overheated reactor vents. The explosion wasn't as dramatic as the first, but it was enough. The Vral warship went dark, engines dead, drifting in space. 2 down, 1 to go. But the last ship was angry now. It stopped trying to capture the human ship. Now it just wanted to destroy them. Do-hyun watched the plasma cannons charge. This time, they wouldn't miss. "Ji-won," he said quietly into the intercom. "If this doesn't work, it's been an honor serving with you." The doctor's reply was calm. "It's going to work, Captain. Bring everyone home." The Vral ship fired. The plasma cannon fire streaked through space, bright and deadly. On the bridge of the Taeguk's pride, everyone held their breath. The pilot threw the ship into a spin that pushed the hull to its limits. Metal screamed, systems sparked, but the plasma bolts missed by mere meters, close enough that Do-hyun could see the heat readings spike on his console. "Return fire!" he ordered. Their last mining charges launched. The Vral ship's shields absorbed most of the impact, but one charge slipped through a gap and hit the hull. It wasn't enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to make them angry. The Vral vessel accelerated toward them, abandoning long-range tactics for a close-quarters kill. They were done playing with the little human ship. "Captain, I can't dodge at this range," the pilot said, his voice tight with fear. "They're too close." Do-hyun's mind raced. They were out of weapons, out of tricks. In seconds, the Vral ship would be on top of them. And those plasma cannons would tear through their hull like paper. Then Minho's voice crackled through the intercom. "Captain, I have one more idea, but it's going to hurt. Tell me." "Our reactor can overload. Controlled burst. We vent all the energy at once right in their face. It'll blind their sensors and maybe fry their forward shields. But our reactor will need 20 minutes to restart after." 20 minutes floating dead in space, defenseless. It was insane, but so was everything else they had done today. "Do it," Do-hyun ordered. The ship's lights flickered once. Then the Taeguk's pride released every bit of stored energy in a single massive pulse. The wave of electromagnetic radiation and heat washed over the Vral warship like a tidal wave. Their shields flickered and died. Their sensors went dark. For a precious few seconds, they were blind. "Ramming speed," Do-hyun said quietly. "Sir?" The pilot looked at him in shock. "You heard me. Ram them. Right into their sensor array." The Taeguk's pride, with no power but momentum and thrusters, slammed into the Vral warship's forward section. The collision was violent. The human ship's reinforced mining nose, designed to push asteroids, crushed the Vral sensor cluster. Both ships spun through space, locked together. Do-hyun was thrown from his chair. He heard something crack, felt pain shoot through his ribs. Around the bridge, his crew struggled to stay conscious. "Everyone alive?" he gasped. Acknowledgements came in, shaky but present. They were hurt but alive. Through the viewport, he could see the Vral ship. Its weapons were still powered, but without sensors. They couldn't aim. They fired blindly into space, missing everything. "How long until our reactor restarts?" Do-hyun asked. 15 minutes, Minho replied, his voice pained. "Sir, their reactor is critical. I think our collision damaged their cooling systems. They're going to overload." "How long?" 10 minutes. Maybe less. "Captain, if we're still attached when they blow..." Do-hyun understood. They couldn't restart their engines in time. They were stuck to a ship that was about to explode and take them with it. On the planet's surface, Yoonji didn't know about the crisis in orbit. She was too busy fighting for her life. The Vral ground forces had regrouped. They surrounded the human position, 50 armed raiders against 6 explorers. The colony civilians huddled behind the humans, terrified. "We need to move them to the dropship," Yoonji said to her team. "Cover me." She ran to the nearest group of colonists, a family clutching each other. The mother was the woman from the distress call, Yoonji realized, the one whose daughter had been taken. "Where's your daughter?" Yoonji asked. The woman pointed to one of the raid craft. "They put her on that ship. Please, you have to..." "I will," Yoonji promised. "But first, I need you to get to our dropship. Can you run?" The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yoonji's team laid down covering fire, and the colonists ran. Some didn't make it. Yoonji watched a man fall, shot in the back by a Vral weapon. She wanted to stop, to help him, but she couldn't. More lives depended on keeping moving. The Vral were pressing closer. Yoonji was down to her last ammunition magazine. This was it. They would save as many as they could, and then they would die here. At least they had tried. Then she heard engines overhead, human engines. A cargo hauler dropped from orbit, old and battered but moving fast. The pilot brought it down right on top of 2 Vral raid craft, crushing them under its landing gear. The cargo bay opened and more humans poured out, workers from nearby mining stations who had heard the distress call. They weren't soldiers. They were miners, engineers, and traders. But they were human, and they had come to help. The tide turned. The Vral, suddenly facing reinforcements, started to retreat. Yoonji seized the moment. "The raid craft!" she shouted. "The one with the children!" She ran toward it, not thinking about tactics or safety. Inside that ship were innocent people. She had promised to save them. The raid craft's pilot saw her coming and tried to take off, but Yoonji was faster. She leaped, catching the landing strut, and pulled herself up. The ship lurched into the air and she nearly fell, but she held on. The pilot opened the hatch to shake her off. Big mistake. Yoonji swung inside and faced him. He reached for his weapon. She was quicker. 3 seconds later, the pilot was unconscious, and Yoonji had control of the ship. She brought it down hard near the colony center and opened the cargo bay. Dozens of people stumbled out, blinking in the light. Children, elderly, the colonists who couldn't fight back. The woman from earlier found her daughter and collapsed, holding the little girl and sobbing with relief. Yoonji allowed herself one moment to breathe, one moment to feel the victory. Then she activated her communicator. "Captain, ground forces secured. The colonists are safe. What's your status?" There was a long pause. Too long. Then Do-hyun's voice came through, weak and strained. "Yoonji, we're attached to the last Vral ship. It's going to explode in about 5 minutes. We can't break free in time." Yoonji's blood went cold. "There has to be a way." "There isn't. But listen, you saved them. The colony is safe. That's what matters. Tell everyone." "No," Yunji cut him off. "You don't get to die. Not today." She looked at the cargo hauler that had just arrived. It was old, barely holding together, but it had one thing the Taguk's pride didn't right now: working engines. "Captain, how far are you from the planet?" "Low orbit." "Why? Can you separate at least one section of your ship from the Vral vessel?" "Maybe, but we'd still be too close to the blast." Yunji ran toward the cargo hauler, screaming at its pilot. "I need your tractor beam. Now!" The pilot, an older man with grease on his face, looked at her like she was crazy. "That thing can barely lift shipping containers." "It'll have to be enough. Get airborne and lock onto the Taguk's Pride's signature. You're going to pull them away from that Vral ship." "That's impossible." "Welcome to humanity," Yunji snarled. "We do impossible things before breakfast. Move." The cargo hauler struggled into orbit. Its tractor beam was weak, designed for guiding cargo pods, not pulling starships, but it locked onto the Taguk's Pride anyway. On the bridge, Do-hyun felt the tug. "Minho! Explosive bolts on the connection point! Blow them now!" The explosion was small but effective. The Taguk's Pride separated from the Vral ship, and the tractor beam pulled them away, slowly, agonizingly slowly. Do-hyun watched the Vral vessel on the sensors. Any second now. Any second. The cargo hauler's engines screamed with effort. The tractor beam began to fail. They weren't moving fast enough. Then other ships arrived. More cargo haulers, mining vessels, even a few private yachts. Humans from across the sector, drawn by the distress call and the news of the battle. They all activated their tractor beams, weak as they were, and pulled. Together, dozens of small ships dragged the Taguk's Pride away from the doomed Vral warship. The Vral vessel exploded, a brilliant flash that lit up the entire planet. The shockwave hit seconds later, buffeting all the ships, but they were far enough now. They survived. Do-hyun slumped in his chair, exhausted and in pain. "Status report," Hana laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "Sir, we just won, against impossible odds, with no weapons, no power, and half the hull held together by hope and stubbornness. We actually won." Do-hyun closed his eyes. They had won. Against 3 Vral warships. Against a slaving raid that should have succeeded. 1 small ship and a crew that refused to give up. That's all it took. Below, on Kepler 447, the colonists were gathering. 3,847 survivors. Not everyone had made it, but most had. Because humans had answered the call. News of what happened at Kepler 447 spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every species, every government, and every military force knew the story. 1 human exploration ship had defeated 3 Vral warships and stopped a slaving raid. The reactions were mixed. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Somin stood before the assembled representatives. The chamber was enormous, filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales, some had fur, and some were beings of pure energy. All of them were staring at her. The Vral representative, a massive creature with scarred armor and cold eyes, slammed his appendage on his podium. "The humans have committed an act of war against the Vral Dominion. They destroyed our ships. They killed our warriors. This aggression cannot stand." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species nodded in agreement. The Vral were dangerous, but they were also powerful. Nobody wanted to anger them. Somin stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "The humans responded to a distress call. We saved nearly 4,000 innocent beings from slavery. Where were the council peacekeepers? Where was the justice this body claims to provide?" "The peacekeepers were 3 weeks away," a counselor responded. "Standard response time for that sector." 3 weeks, Somin repeated. In 3 weeks, those 4,000 people would have been gone, sold, scattered across the galaxy in chains. But you want to punish the species that actually saved them? The law must be followed, another counselor said. The humans cannot simply take military action without council approval. Then the law is broken, Soman said flatly. If following the law means watching innocent people suffer while we wait for permission to help them, then humanity will break that law every single time. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species shouted support for the Vral. Others, particularly those from frontier worlds that had suffered raids, remained quiet but thoughtful. The vote on sanctions against humanity failed, but barely. The galaxy was watching humanity now, wondering what they would do next. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Taejin stood in a command center surrounded by holographic displays showing ship movements across human space. He was an older man, scarred from decades of service, with eyes that missed nothing. "The Vral won't let this go," said Yuna, his intelligence officer. She was young but sharp, always 2 steps ahead of everyone else. "Our sources say they're assembling a fleet. A big one. They want revenge." "How big?" Taejin asked. "At least 40 warships, maybe more. They're calling it a punitive expedition. They plan to destroy Kepler 447 as an example, then demand humanity surrender Captain Do-hyun and his crew. If we refuse, they'll attack our frontier colonies." The room fell silent. 40 Vral warships was more than humanity's entire frontier fleet. It would be a slaughter. Sunho, the fleet commander, shook his head. "We can't win a conventional fight against those numbers. If they come in force, we'll have to fall back to core systems and hope our defenses hold." "No," Taejin said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "No retreat, no surrender. If the Vral want a war, we'll give them one. But we'll fight it on our terms." He turned to Yuna. "Start Operation Hammer Strike. Get our Special Forces teams into position. I want eyes on every Vral staging area." "Sir, that will take time. They'll arrive at Kepler 447 before we're ready." "Then we'd better move fast." Taejin looked at his staff. "The Vral think they know what humans are. They think we're just another weak species that got lucky once. They're wrong. We're from Earth. We're Deathworlders, and we're about to remind the galaxy what that means." Across human space, the mobilization began. Commander Hyan Wu led a Special Forces team into deep space, using captured Vral codes to slip past their sensors. His team were ghosts, trained to operate in the worst conditions. Earth had given them plenty of practice in hostile environments. They inserted themselves onto several Vral supply stations, planting tracking devices and gathering intelligence. The Vral never knew they were there. Dr. Nari, a brilliant scientist who usually worked on peaceful projects, opened up her classified files. Inside were weapon designs deemed too dangerous for regular use, kinetic missiles that could punch through any shield, mines that released radiation, drones that hunted targets relentlessly. "These are all highly illegal under council law," she said to Taejin during a video call. "Good thing the council isn't coming to help us then," Taejin replied. Nari smiled grimly. "I'll have them ready." Pilot Junho and his squadron retrofitted their fighters with equipment that no military inspector would ever approve. Overcharged engines, weapons with no safety limiters, life support systems stripped down to save weight for more ammunition. "These things are death traps," one pilot complained. Junho laughed. "Brother, we're humans. We were born on a death trap. At least these ones have engines." At Kepler 447, the Taeguk's Pride was being repaired. The ship had taken massive damage, but Minho and his engineering team were working around the clock. They reinforced the hull, upgraded the weapons, and installed every defensive system they could fit. Do-hyun walked through the colony, his ribs still healing from the battle. Everywhere he went, colonists stopped to thank him. Children wanted to touch his uniform. The mother whose daughter had been saved couldn't stop crying with gratitude. "You didn't have to come," she told him. "Nobody else would have, but you came anyway." Do-hyun didn't know what to say. He had just done what felt right. What any human would do when someone called for help. Yoonji found him sitting alone, looking at the stars. Thinking about the Vral fleet that's coming? How did you know? Because everyone knows. Word spreads fast. She sat beside him. 40 ships. We barely survived 3. I know. Are we going to run? Do-hyun looked at her. Would you? Yoonji smiled. Not a chance. These people need protection. We gave them hope. We can't abandon them now. Even if it kills us. Especially then. That's what makes us human, Captain. We don't calculate the odds. We don't do cost-benefit analysis on people's lives. Someone needs help. We help. Simple as that. More human ships began arriving at Kepler 447. 19 warships, everything the frontier fleet could spare. It still wasn't enough against 40 Vral vessels. But it was what they had. The crews knew the odds. They came anyway. Jiwon prepared the medical facilities, knowing that casualties would be heavy. She requisitioned supplies, trained volunteers, and set up triage areas. She didn't let herself think about how many people might die. She just focused on being ready to save as many as she could. 3 days before the Vral fleet was scheduled to arrive, Do-hyun called a meeting of all ship captains. They gathered in Kepler 447's small command center, a mix of military officers and civilian captains who had volunteered. We can't fight them head-on, Do-hyun said. They have too many ships, too much firepower, but we have advantages they don't. Like what? A captain asked. We're fighting in our space, near our people. We know this nebula better than they do. And most importantly, they expect us to be afraid. They expect us to run. But we're humans. We don't run when there are people to protect. Yoonji pulled up tactical displays. We're going to use every dirty trick we know, mines in the nebula, false signals, hit-and-run attacks. We make them bleed for every meter of space. We make them regret coming here. Even if we do everything right, some of us won't survive this, another captain pointed out. I know, Do-hyun said. I won't lie to you. This is going to be the hardest fight of our lives, but 4,000 people on this colony are alive because we answered a distress call. If we let the Vral win now, all of that was for nothing. Every colony in this sector will know that humans can be beaten, that calling for our help is pointless. He looked at each captain in turn. But if we fight, if we make the Vral pay such a terrible price that they never want to raid human-protected space again, then we change everything. We tell the galaxy that humanity protects its own. Always. The room was silent for a moment. Then one captain stood up. My crew is in. Another stood. Mine too. One by one, every captain stood. 19 ships against 40. Impossible odds. But humans had never cared much about impossible. On the Vral flagship, Commander Valth reviewed the battle plan. 43 warships under his command. The largest punitive fleet the Vral Dominion had sent in decades. They would crush the humans, destroy their colony, and remind the galaxy who ruled the frontier. He had heard about what happened before. One lucky human ship destroying 3 Vral vessels. It was embarrassing, but it was a fluke. This time would be different. This time the humans would learn their place. Valth had no idea what was waiting for him. The Vral fleet arrived at Kepler 447 in perfect formation. 43 warships, their weapons charged and ready. Commander Valth stood on his flagship's bridge, confident in his overwhelming superiority. Scan for human vessels, he ordered. Detecting 19 human warships in orbit around the colony, Commander. They're not running. Valth made a sound that might have been laughter. Foolish. They actually think they can fight us. He opened a communication channel. Human vessels. This is Commander Valth of the Vral Dominion. Surrender Captain Do-hyun and his crew immediately. Evacuate the colony. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Refuse, and we will destroy everything. On the Taeguk's Pride, Do-yun listened to the demand. Around him, his bridge crew waited for his response. He thought about all the people on Kepler 447, the children, the families, the refugees who had already lost one home. He opened the channel. Commander Valth, this is Captain Do-yun. I have a counteroffer. Leave now, and we won't destroy your fleet. The Vral bridge erupted in laughter. Do-yun could hear it through the channel. 19 ships threatening 43? It was absurd. Your hour begins now, Valth said, and cut the connection. Do-yun looked at Yunji. Execute the plan. Throughout the nebula, things began to happen that the Vral couldn't see. Hundreds of mines, deployed days ago by Minho's teams, activated their stealth systems. Hyunwoo's special forces, hidden on Vral supply ships, sent final position updates before going silent. Human fighters, running on minimal power, drifted like debris in the asteroid field. The Vral fleet began its approach, confident and unstoppable. They moved into the nebula in tight formation, exactly as predicted. Now, Yunji whispered. The mines exploded, not randomly but in a carefully planned sequence. The blasts created corridors of fire and shrapnel, channeling the Vral fleet into specific paths. 3 warships took direct hits, their shields overloading from the unexpected assault. Ambush! Someone shouted on Valth's bridge. Mines throughout the nebula! Maintain formation, Valth ordered. They're just mines. Push through. But the mines were just the beginning. From the asteroid field, Junho's fighter squadron emerged at full burn. Their overcharged weapons, illegal and dangerous, fired continuously. The Vral point defense systems tried to track them, but the human pilots flew like they were insane. Because in a way, they were. They had grown up on a planet where everything tried to kill them. Flying through weapons fire felt almost normal. The fighters targeted specific ships, the ones Hyunwoo's teams had marked as command vessels. They didn't try to destroy them, just damage their communication arrays. Suddenly, the Vral fleet began losing coordination. Fall back to defensive positions, Valth ordered, but half his fleet couldn't hear him. Their communications were jammed or destroyed. The 19 human warships came next, not in formation but scattered, using the nebula gases to mask their approach. They fired everything they had, then disappeared back into the clouds before the Vral could respond effectively. It wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. And for the first time in centuries, the Vral were the prey. One Vral captain, separated from the main fleet, suddenly found his ship surrounded by 3 human vessels. They fired from all sides, concentrating on his engines. Within minutes, his ship was crippled, drifting helplessly. Another Vral warship tried to break through to the colony directly. The Taeguk's Pride intercepted, using the same insane tactics that had worked before. They dove, rolled, and fired at ranges that should have been suicidal. The Vral captain, expecting standard military tactics, couldn't adapt fast enough. His ship joined the growing collection of wrecks. On his flagship, Valth watched in growing horror as his fleet was torn apart. This wasn't possible. They had superior numbers, better weapons, stronger shields. But nothing was working. "How are they doing this?" his tactical officer asked, panic clear in his voice. Valth realized the answer. The humans weren't fighting a normal battle. They were fighting like the predators they were, using terrain, using deception, striking from unexpected angles, never staying still long enough to be hit. The Vral were warriors, but the humans were hunters. And on Earth, humans had learned to hunt creatures much larger and stronger than themselves. "Regroup," Valth ordered. "Pull back to defensive formation." But it was too late. His fleet was scattered, confused, and bleeding. Ship after ship took critical damage. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once, appearing from the nebula like ghosts, striking and vanishing. Then Nari's special weapons arrived. missiles that moved too fast for point defense to track, drones that chased their targets relentlessly, radiation mines that fried electronic systems. Every weapon was illegal under Galactic Council law. Every weapon was devastatingly effective. The Vral had never faced an enemy that fought without following the rules, because humans had learned long ago that on Earth there were no rules. You survived or you died. A massive explosion lit up the nebula as a Vral ammunition ship detonated. The shockwave damaged 3 nearby vessels. Hunwoo's team had done their job perfectly. "Commander, we've lost 20 ships," Valth's tactical officer reported. "Another 8 are severely damaged. We need to retreat." Valth couldn't believe it. They had come with 43 ships. Now nearly half were gone or useless. Against 19 human vessels. "All ships, emergency withdrawal," he ordered. "Get us out of here." The surviving Vral warships turned and ran, their engines burning at maximum power. The human fighters harassed them as they fled, picking off the slowest vessels. On the Taeguk's Pride, Do-hyun watched them go. His ship was damaged, his crew was exhausted, and they had lost 3 vessels in the battle. But they had won. Yoonji collapsed into her chair. "They're running. The Vral Dominion is running from us." Hana received a transmission. "Captain, we're getting calls from all over the sector. Colonies, freight haulers, mining stations, everyone who heard what happened. They're asking if humans will protect them too." Do-hyun thought about that. Humanity had just fought the largest battle in their short spacefaring history. They had lost good people, the cost had been high, but they had proven something. When someone called for help, humans would answer, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. On Earth, Admiral Taejin watched the battle reports with satisfaction. Then he made an announcement that would change the galaxy forever. "From this day forward, humanity will respond to any distress call within our operational range. We will not ask permission from the Galactic Council. We will not wait for approval. When someone needs help, we will come. This is the Deathworlder doctrine. This is who we are." The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Galactic Council called it dangerous and irresponsible. But the frontier colonies called it hope. Within weeks, the effect became clear. Pirate raids dropped dramatically. Slaver activity near human space almost disappeared. The predators of the galaxy had learned a simple lesson. Humans bite back. On Kepler 447, now permanently protected by a human garrison, life slowly returned to normal. The colony erected a memorial for those lost in the raids and the battle, human and alien names side by side. Do-hyun stood at the memorial with Yoonji, Minho, Jiwon, and Hana, his crew, his family. A child approached, the same little girl who had been rescued from the raid craft. She held out a drawing she had made, showing the Taeguk's Pride flying through stars. "Thank you for saving my mommy," she said in a small voice. Do-hyun knelt down. "You're welcome, and I promise if you ever need help again, we'll come. That's what humans do." The girl smiled and ran back to her mother, who watched with tears in her eyes. Yoonji nudged Do-hyun. "Think we changed anything?" "Maybe. Maybe now the galaxy knows that humans don't abandon people, that we'll fight impossible odds to save lives, that we're more than just lucky survivors from a death world." "And if more fights come?" Do-hyun smiled. "Then we'll fight them. Together." His communicator beeped. Hana's voice came through. "Captain, we're receiving another distress call. Raiders attacking a transport convoy 3 systems away. They're asking for help." Do-hyun stood up. He looked at his crew, saw their determination, their readiness. They were tired. They were hurt. But they wouldn't refuse. "Tell them we're coming," he said. "Maximum burn." The Taeguk's Pride lifted off from Kepler 447, engines bright against the stars. Behind them, other human ships followed, not because they were ordered, not because they were paid, but because someone needed help, and humans would always answer that call. In the depths of space, the galaxy was learning a new truth. Humanity wasn't the strongest species. They weren't the smartest or the oldest, but they were something perhaps more dangerous. They were beings who had survived a world that constantly tried to kill them, who had learned that the only way to survive was to never give up, to protect each other, to fight when fighting seemed impossible. They were Deathworlders, and the galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador Soman stood before the Galactic Council months later, watching as more species asked to establish defensive partnerships with humanity. The Council that had condemned them now quietly accepted their actions, because the frontier was safer now. Because slavers and raiders thought twice before attacking. Because when darkness came, someone would answer the call for help. Humanity hadn't asked to be heroes. They had simply done what felt right, saved people who needed saving, fought when fighting was necessary, never backed down from protecting the innocent. It was who they were, who they had always been. From the moment their ancestors first stood upright on the African plains and decided to survive no matter what the world threw at them. They were human, they were from Earth, they were Deathworlders, and they had struck back.